Assalamu alaikum, dear friends and fellows. How are you? I welcome you here on my training channel. My name is Abdul Khalik. Dear friends, look, we all obviously want to lead a good life, and many or most of the people are of the view that to be able to lead a very good life, all what is needed is to have a very good amount of wealth, or maybe any other thing like social status, etc. Maybe all of that is okay. Nobody can deny the importance of those. But still, there is another thing that is so important, it is vital. It is vital for leading a good life. And a person, even with a very meager resources, if at all they possess it, I believe that they can experience the peace of mind, they can lead a happy and a good life. On the other hand, if a person does not have it, so it actually means that they are the poorest leading a poorest life, even if at all they're wealthy. So, dear friends and fellows, it is very, very important indeed that we people are, it is very, very important indeed that we people are possessing this thing. So, dear friends and fellows, that one thing is called self respect. So, self respect is very, very important. Self respect is very, very important indeed. And lacking this self respect, I think that things will go much, much wrong. The things will go much, much wrong if at all we are lacking this self respect. So, how can we somehow protect our self interest? That is something we have some very important points about all that, about the self respect, understanding importance of self respect. First of all, we need to properly appreciate our worth and capabilities without self aggrandizement or self deprecation. No self aggrandizement, no self deprecation. Instead, we need to properly appreciate our worth and our capabilities. So, that is the first thing which we need to understand every time we are talking about the self respect. And the second thing is refuse to tolerate mistreatment. We do need to refuse, we need to do need to refuse to tolerate mistreatment. Refuse to tolerate mistreatment, that is very, very important indeed, because failing to failing to tolerate the mistreatment, I think it will be extremely bad indeed. So, my dear friends and fellows, we need to refuse to tolerate the mistreatment. That is the number two thing. And obviously, then the third is, constructive self reflection. Constructively self reflect instead of self loathing when facing adversity. Adversity does come off and on in our life, and usually we ourselves are responsible. So, in a situation like this one, what is needed is that constructively self reflect, where did I do wrong, instead of self loathing, instead of hating oneself. And during the course of adversity is there, but I need to do it, I need to handle and to manage it in quite a sensible manner, dear friend. Highlighting the next point is highlighting poor boundaries, toxicity acceptance, neediness, or skewed self perception. Highlighting poor boundaries, setting of the boundaries, that is very, very important indeed. Setting of the boundaries is very, very important indeed. We need to set boundaries, and if at all we do fail to set the boundaries, I think we are going to suffer, and we are going to suffer a lot. So, face, setting the boundaries, that is so much important. Earlier we said refusing to tolerate mistreatment. How to refuse the mistreatment? how to refuse that, how to refuse the mistreatment, how to refuse to tolerate the mistreatment. That is so much important. Many of the people are of the view that since I'm a weak person, the other person is a very strong one, so in a situation like this one, I cannot afford to fight with them. I'm not suggesting here at all that go and fight with them. Absolutely, fighting with them, that might not be an easy task at all. But what can be done is that we can reduce what we are doing for them, the kind of respect, the kind of warmth, the kind of acceptance. So we need to keep reducing it on a permanent basis. We cannot enhance our respect in the mind and the heart of those people, but somehow we can do another thing. And this thing is that creating a distance and start neglecting them. Do not pay attention to them, even if at all they people are doing something or saying something very abusive toward us. Even in a situation like this one, I think we should ignore that all and not to respond them. Let them talk, let them say all those nonsense thing, and actually they are exposing themselves in front of the other people. So all the best behavior, the best reaction from us is to ignore, and that is what the intelligent people are seen doing. Simply start creating a distance, minimize your interaction with them, and even cut off ties if at all it is needed. Cut off the ties, or create a lot of distance, or even totally cut off the ties. That is what can be done. That is how we can somehow refuse to tolerate the mistreatment. And now obviously it is the constructively self reflect instead of self loathing. When facing the adversity we will be there several times in our lifetime. So in a situation like this one, there shouldn't be any sort of self-loathing at all, and there shouldn't we what is needed is we need to constructively reflect. And now once we are reflecting, we need to do the highlighting what, highlighting the poor boundaries. Why didn't I set the strong boundaries? Why my boundaries are very poor? So that is the first thing to reflect upon and highlight it. And the second is the toxicity acceptance. Why did I accept the toxicity? I should not have accepted it. Now the third is the neediness. Why I presented myself in such is so much of the needy person. And then the fourth, skewed self-perception. Why an unfair and distorted opinion about myself? Why anything like this one? Why so much unfair? Why so much unfair? And why so much bad? It shouldn't be done at all. And now the next is we can cultivate self-respect by setting personal standards. But we can cultivate self-respect by setting personal standards. Yes, personal standards should be set, and by we can this way we can cultivate the self-respect, because we are measuring ourselves upon our own standards. I don't suggest that our own standard should be a bad one, should be a very poor one, and should not be a good one at all. I'm not suggesting anything like that at all, because that will be another type of foolishness. Have a fair standard and then weigh ourselves on our own personal standards, instead of accepting the standards of other people, and instead of weighing ourselves on the standards of those people. It is far better we can cultivate self-respect by setting personal standards and by practicing self-care. Yes, we can cultivate self-respect by setting personal standards on the one hand, by practicing self-care on the other hand, by asserting our needs diplomatically and intelligently, by asserting our needs diplomatically and intelligently, and then giving ourselves compassion as well. We need to give ourselves compassion and replacing negative self-talk with a balanced understanding of our strengths, with a balanced understanding of our strengths and flaws. So dear friend, that is extremely important. every word spoken here in this point. That is, we can cultivate self respect. How can we cultivate the self respect? By setting personal standards. So these are my personal standards. I'm weighing myself upon these personal standards instead of measuring, instead of weighing myself upon the standards of any other person. I am weighing myself on the personal standard, practicing self care. Yes, we need to practice the self care. If at all we don't practice, if at all we don't take care of ourselves, who else is going to do that? And now the next is asserting needs diplomatically. Yes, our needs are there, our needs are there, but these needs should be asserted. How can we do that? If at all we are openly and bluntly and simply and plainly, if we are asserting our need, we might be losing our good image in the society. So we can do all that in a diplomatic, in an intelligent manner. So that is, asserting your need diplomatically. And now the next is giving ourselves compassion. Yes, we need to look upon ourselves in a compassionate manner. Self compassion is very important. What is this self compassion? It is being warm and understanding toward oneself, being warm and understanding toward oneself. When we fail, when we suffer the setback, when we feel the inadequate, so in a situation like this one, we need to become warm, we need to become understanding toward ourselves. So that is called the self compassion. And of course there is another thing, and that is replacing the negative self talk. Replacing mean removing the negative self talk, and then having a balanced understanding of our strengths and flaws. Obviously we do have certain strengths, and we need to be happy, we need to understand, we need to identify the identification of our strengths on the one hand, consolidating it on the other hand, taking the maximum advantage of all that. That is the third thing. So that is what how we can treat our strengths, and then there are our flaws as well. Then there are our flaws as well. How to treat our flaws? I think what we can do is identification is the first thing, and then of course we need to minimize it, we need to keep reducing it. A time will arrive that we will not be having that flaw anymore at all. So that is then the last point is that no one can make you feel inferior, no one can make me feel inferior without my own consent. So that is something which was extremely important, which is extremely important. So that is how. Let's have a very, very quick revision in a single minute about all what we have spoken. That is, you know understanding the importance of self care, the how properly appreciating our worth and capabilities without self aggrandizement, or without self deprecation, neither exaggeration nor minimizing our own worth and capabilities. Rather, it is the properly appreciating, evaluating our worth and capabilities without self aggrandizement and without self deprecation, both things, neither increasing it nor reducing it, rather properly appreciating it. The second thing is refuse to tolerate mistreatment by ignoring them, by reducing, minimizing our contacts, our ties with them, and even cutting off the ties, minimizing it, keep minimizing it, and ultimately cutting our ties with them. So that is how we can refuse to tolerate mistreatment. Now the third is constructive self reflect constructively self reflect. We need to reflect upon ourselves and our performance and our situation in a constructive manner, instead of self loathing, instead of hating ourselves, and instead of when we are facing the adversity, in that case constructively self reflect instead of self loathing. When we are facing the adversity, it is extremely important point, constructively self reflect instead of self loathing. Now the next is once we are reflecting, constructively self-reflecting, then we need to highlight the poor boundaries. We need to set the strong own boundaries. And we need to toxicity acceptance. We should not have accepted the toxicity. We are not going to accept the toxicity anymore. Neediness. I don't want to present myself as a very needy person. And now and our skewed self perception. No skewed self perception, because skewed mean unfair, distorted, and biased one. So I'm not going to do anything like that one. What we can do is we can activate self respect. Yes, we can activate the self respect by setting personal standards. These are my personal standards. I am going to weigh myself upon these personal and fair standards. Now practicing self care, we need to practice self care. We need to asserting our needs diplomatically, intelligently. Asserting our needs diplomatically, intelligently, giving ourselves compassion. Yes, we need to develop the self compassion, and we need to develop the self compassion, and replacing negative self talk. No negative self talk at all, with a balanced understanding of our strengths and flaws. There are our straws flaws, there are our strengths, and we need to look upon all that, in a balanced manner. Balanced understanding of the strength and the flaws, replacing the negative self talk with a balanced understanding of strengths and flaws. And the loss point, and that is, no one can make me feel inferior. No one can make you feel inferior without our own consent. So that is the self respect. Thank you very much.